Well, good afternoon, everyone. This is Mike Romali here with the Hurricane Season 2020 update, part of the Hurricane Outlook and Session for July 26th, 2020, recorded around 1:09 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, out here in the Central Pacific Basin, closer into another U.S. area, Hawaii, Hurricane Douglas is now on its final approach into Hawaii. Hurricane warnings have been issued for most of the area, with tropical storm warnings to the south of here. Again, this is a hurricane with maximum sustained winds of 90 miles per hour still. So this is pretty much what Hurricane Hanna was yesterday when it made landfall in Texas, is basically where it's going to be now, making landfall into Hawaii and some of the Hawaiian Islands here, before finally weakening after it makes landfall, becoming a tropical storm. Tropical storm watch is issued to the north of the Hawaiian Islands as well, and then eventually turning out here and dissipating over the next few days or so. If we take a look here at what's going on the radar presentation, again, this is taking a look from the Big Island here. This, again, mountains are kind of blocking some of the radar presentation over here because there is some mountainous terrain out here that's kind of blocking that radar scan. So we're looking at a partial eye segment of this storm, and you can see clearly that it's got a well-enveloped eye. It's got a well-developed eye-like feature still, and if we pop on the velocities here, these velocities are getting close here into the 90 to 100 mile per hour range. You can see some 80 mile per hour on the bottom corner of the readout here. So this is now rapidly approaching Honolulu and a couple of other areas. This is going to be a fairly significant impact for Hawaii. Even as far south here as the Big Island, there is going to be some rain and wind impacts, but the main impacts are going to be to these smaller islands here. And this is going to be one of the things that we really have to pay attention to. Of course, you can see some of the islands there, but for the most part, this is going to be one of these more significant events that Hawaii has had in a long time. So for you folks, residents and visitors in Hawaii now, preparations should be rushed to completion, because this is expected to make landfall here within a couple of hours or so. And of course, as we did yesterday with Hurricane Hanna making landfall, we will be doing another live radar coverage here later this afternoon as it approaches closer, with no sound again, because I've got to be doing stuff with the radar, or not with the radar, but with our camera project, so I won't really be on. But you guys can sit here and watch radar if you choose to do so. So that is something residents in Hawaii will have to pay attention to. Now, elsewhere out here in the deep tropics, where we turn our attention now to another system developing, but first and foremost, taking a look here at the sea surface temperatures at the very top and surface of the water. This is the CDAS methodology from tropicaltidbits.com. You notice how these water temperatures here are very warm off the coast of Africa here, more than supportive now for tropical cyclone development, almost entirely in the main development region. Again, a little bit less favorable out here. But again, this is a fairly large, expansive area of fairly warm sea surface temperatures, and this area is looking more and more favorable as we progress throughout the season. And to second that reason, basically, this is the upper ocean heat content values updated as of this morning. Basically, all the way from the greens to the darker reds here, that's basically indicative of your higher upper ocean heat content, your more significant numbers. And you see where it's located out here in the central Atlantic Basin, the main development region, into the Caribbean, Gulf of Mexico even, all the way up into the southwestern Atlantic, the Gulf Stream through here. These are very warm, and especially in the Caribbean, you notice how these upper ocean heat content values are now approaching basically the upper third to fourth of the scale in through here. So that means that if you went offshore and went deep down in the water, your sea surface temperatures would decrease fairly slowly to a certain extent, to a certain depth. And the higher these numbers are, the more depth your 80-degree isotherm goes, and that is a significant 80-degree isotherm amount in here in the deep tropics and in the Caribbean. And even you notice out here into the the main development region, the Atlantic Basin, still is warming up quite nicely with those upper ocean heat content values now approaching the thresholds that it can sustain tropical cyclone formation and maintenance in the main development region and in the deep tropics near the Cabo Verde Islands. So that will be something that we do have to watch here over the next several days. And this kind of furthers that. This is a look at the actual sea surface temperatures in the western part of the basin and the northern part for the North Atlantic. And you notice these are the actual sea surface temperatures. Here's about 30 Celsius right here, so very warm. You notice right here, this is basically the running Gulf Stream that runs all the way through here. It's a looping current, basically, so it's a continuous flow of warm water. And you notice even about 28 Celsius out here, all the way into the North Atlantic, then that runs congruently into the Gulf Stream through here. So it is very warm, and even that 26 isotherm now kind of moves all the way up into near New Jersey. So you can imagine if you get a fast-moving hurricane to come through here, you know, maybe moving about 10 to 15 miles per hour, you know, and it stays relatively close to the coastline. I'm just saying, these sea surface temperatures of about 26 Celsius, you know, it would still support tropical cyclones to maintain their current intensity as it, you know, first of all comes through the Gulf Stream, but then, of course, up here, you know, you're not seeing these rapid drop-offs like you're seeing up here where the water temperatures really plummet. You're seeing a more, you know, consistent line now, so that's, you know, pushing up to near New Jersey, the Delmar, up to New York even. This is kind of concerning because that 26 isotherm, the closer it gets to the coastline, is the less and less room that a hurricane coming through here has to actually weaken, and the more it would maintain itself. So you talk about a fast-moving major hurricane coming into this part of the world is a little concerning. And, you know, we're not saying anything will or is going to happen, but this is a rather concerning look for the sea surface temperature profiles. And even right off the Carolina coastline here, about 29 to 30 Celsius, that's also fairly concerning as well. Now, one quick thing here, Tropical Storm Hanna has moved inland over portions of Texas last night as a very high-end Category 1 hurricane, with maximum sustained winds of 90 miles per hour pushing out here in the Rio Grande Valley. This eventually moved off towards the south and west here, is now over Mexico, inland over Mexico. Tropical storm warnings do remain in effect for portions of Mexico and the Rio Grande all the way to Brownsville. There is a strong on-flow push here of rain and heavy wind that can still cause a little bit of storm surge in this region. So the impacts are far from over across that area as Hanna will continue to move into Mexico and weaken out here. By tomorrow, it is expected to become a post-tropical remnant circulation. So you can see tropical storm force winds still extend into portions of Texas here, into portions of the southern Texas area. These tropical storm warnings are because of the onshore flow here causing some storm surge and some wind impacts as well with it. So again, the main impacts is going to be some very heavy rainfall, some gusty winds as we progress throughout the rest of today and tomorrow. Now, taking a wider view here, this is the GOES 16 satellite imagery from College DuPage, the Cloud Meteorology website. A couple of things to take a look at here, going from left to right. This is the circulation of Tropical Storm Hanna right there. Again, it's very broad. You can see some of this deeper convection that's rotating onshore into Texas and Mexico. That's going to be a very heavy rainfall threat over the next several days. There is even going to be a very heavy rainfall event well to the east of the center of circulation over portions of eastern Texas and Louisiana, portions of Mississippi as well. You notice this area of convection over here, these showers and thunderstorms as part of the very far remnants of Hanna. This is a very large system, and as such, it is producing far-reaching effects all the way over to Louisiana and portions of Mississippi. So about 2 to 4 inches of rain can be expected for there over the next several days or so. Some interesting little feature out here off the Florida coastline, not really expected to develop at all, but it does have a little bit of circulation with it. We will be, of course, paying attention to it, but this is expected to move up and move inland, so not really anticipating development with that. This is kind of actually the remnant thunderstorm cluster associated with Tropical Storm Gonzalo, which did become a remnant circulation as of yesterday after passing through the Lesser Antilles and Trinidad and Tobago. It moved a lot further south, became a very remnant circulation. So for you folks down there in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course the Lesser Antilles and Barbados, did spare from a much stronger system. So that is certainly a good news. But now the attention starts to turn out to Invest Area 92L. And speaking of Invest Area 92L, this has a 90% chance of development over the next 5 days or so as it grows closer to the Lesser Antilles. And again, this is going to be something that from Puerto Rico, St. Croix, all the way down to Trinidad and Tobago need to be monitoring the progress of this system. We've gotten a couple of questions on where exactly this might go. And to answer that question further, this is a look at kind of what is the forecast here for Invest Area 92L. So a couple of things to note here. These blues are your higher pressures out here. We'll highlight this in a slightly better color if we can. This is our area of high pressure out here, and this is our area of maybe a track out to sea potentially, our next area of high pressure out here. So a couple of things that we do want to point out here. So first of all, not necessarily a forecast, but looking at the overall model solution so far, this is what the models are picking up on, and then we'll get into the model guidance here in a minute. But this is where the model guidance gets a little tricky. So our red line right here, what is this red line? Well, a stronger Invest Area 92L is going to want to move further to the north. It is possibly a poleward moving system. Because it's stronger, it gets evected to the north quicker and more easily. Because of a stronger system, is going to want to move more poleward and find a weakness in the ridge in high pressure, which is this area out through here. That's our kind of weakness in that ridge. And the thing is that this area of high pressure, you notice, is not kind of linking up out here. That would be kind of sending these storms further to the west. And that's one of the things that we have to watch, is that does this change in the modeling? Because the models over the last several weeks, and because of everything going on in the world right now, we don't have aircraft flying through this area as frequently, so we have less and less data for the models to work with, because the models ingest the data from airplanes as they're flying throughout this area in the world. And because that we don't have as many, because of what's going on, of course, we don't have a very well sampled environment out there. So that could cause the models to flip and flop, and we're seeing that consistently now with 92L. But if this were to pan out, this would be a stronger system. So if this develops quicker and gets stronger, this would be a system that would, probably evect more north here. And what would end up happening is this would kind of find our weakness or trophiness in our area of our break between the two ridges of high pressure, and this would eventually carry this further on out to sea, west, and then on out towards the north and east and away from sea. But conversely, a weaker Invest Area 92L would want to get closer to the islands, because a weaker system does not necessarily feel that tug in the environment towards a more poleward orientation than a stronger system would. And this could cause it then to end up going into the islands, potentially over the Dominican Republic and Hispaniola, and weakening and dying in the mountains of the Dominican Republic and Hispaniola, which is this blue line indicated right here, this blue track line. So there is some questions as to where Invest 92L is eventually going to go, and the modeling is going to flip and flop over the next several days. It mainly depends on A, the strength, but B, these areas of high pressure. Can these two highs link up like this and become a forcing pattern for these storms to go more westward? If that happens, then that's when we have to start watching for land impacts. But if the storm is a little bit stronger and this current pattern that the models are picking up on does persist, this would eventually get pretty close here still, probably to the Bahamas maybe, but then eventually turn on out to sea and be of no consequence to land. So there's a lot to watch here over the next several days or so. And here's what the GFS forecast model is showing. This is the 12Z run initialized as of 7 a.m. this morning. And a couple of things to point out here. First of all, this is the remnant circulation of Tropical Storm Hanna right here. Again, nothing really showing up from Gonzalo. And this is our circulation embedded with Invest 92L. You notice this big ridge of high pressure out here. This right now is the one that's kind of forcing this to the west. But over the next several days or so, you notice here by the next 2 days, this is hour 48 on the GFS. By Tuesday, we have a system that's almost now well developed. This is a pretty well developed system on Tuesday. With this ridging of high pressure, it is still there, but you kind of notice that it's less and less in the field here. And as such, then, by the 84-hour time frame, we still have a ridging. It is now starting to push a little bit more in, and our GFS forecast model is now starting to get closer to the islands. This is still a pretty strong cyclone by this time. This would be a well-developed cyclone approaching the islands, but now notice what happens. This ridge of high pressure now, this is a little past about 5 days. We'll actually back it out to the 5-day mark here. This ridge of high pressure right here on the 5-day time frame is now starting to abate further eastward, rather. And that is allowing this area of general troughiness to kind of move in over top. And as such, by hour 144, this is the furthest out we're going to go in time, because, you know, why speculate beyond that? Because this is not going to be a true representation. But you notice that ridge of high pressure now does move further away, and we get a weakness in an alleyway for this storm to turn on out to sea with. And that shows up nicely with what our forecast or what our reasoning is behind this, that there might be a possible path on out to sea. But again, it really determines A, the strength, and B, the strength of this high pressure ridge, because either one can have a fairly significant determining factor on where this is going to end up being. And that's a very significant thing. And if we take a look here at the GFS, this is the 500 millibar layer of the atmosphere, about 18,400 feet in the atmosphere, looking at our geopotential height, basically the strength of the ridge in through here. The darker the reds get, your stronger the ridge is, your greenish colors and yellows in here indicate your weakening in the ridge. So we move that out here to about the next 84 hours, and you notice a couple of things here. First of all, we have an area of troughiness moving over the Canada area right now. That's moving to the east here at a fairly good clip. While in the meantime, this big area of high pressure, you kind of notice, is forcing this storm off towards the west-northwest here. So it is kind of an Irma-ish track in terms of where it might end up going, at least in the short term. But if we pass that out here to now 138, approaching the Bahamas, you notice where our weakness begins to pop up here. We have a fairly well-developed area of troughiness and just general weakness in this ridge through here. And as this starts to kind of encroach on this area, you notice what ends up happening while we get this ridging of high pressure that now starts to rebuild. We have an area that's digging in, and that begins to then want to move east and then carry our system on out to sea. So that is that forecast model. That's the European or the GFS forecast model. Conversely, this is the European 850 millibar vorticity, showing by it is a weaker system. By hour 72, it's not really a well-developed system by hour 72, but our main focus on this is to show the strength of this ridge. Again, that strength of in the ridge, you notice, is a little bit stronger here, forcing this a little bit more westward, and it's a little bit weaker on the Europeans, so this would tend to move further to the west. So the bottom line is, if you live in the Lesser Antilles, you need to now start paying attention to the progress of Invest Area 92L. If you live down here in Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola, Puerto Rico, St. Croix, you need to be paying attention to the progress of Invest 92L, because this is a fairly uncertain, very uncertain forecast, and there is a lot that is going to change between now and 3 to 4 days from now. So the bottom line is that we do have an area to watch, Invest 92L, which will likely go on to be at least a tropical depression in the next 5 days, with a 90% over the next 5 days and a 60% chance over the next 48 hours. For you folks in the Lesser Antilles, from Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, Dominican Republic, all the way down to Trinidad and Tobago, you need to be watching and monitoring the progress of Invest 92L. This is a very uncertain storm, a very uncertain track and intensity right now. So we have a lot to understand and a lot to digest over the next few days or so as this continues to move further westward. So we do have a lot to watch here. Of course, Tropical Storm Hanna is going to bring impacts to Mexico and Texas still. Hurricane Douglas is now approaching Hawaii and is on its final approach into the Hawaiian Islands. We are going to do a live stream, a non-voice, non-audio live stream like we did yesterday with Hurricane Hanna to further people's kind of understanding of what's going on with Hurricane Douglas. We will be posting our live stream here onto YouTube. Again, I won't be active on it really. I won't be talking much at all. It's just going to be a live radar coverage. All right. Hope you all have a great rest of your afternoon and evening. I am Michael O'Malley, and I'll see you guys back here then tomorrow afternoon. Stay safe, everyone.